You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I am Shawn Boehme.
and we're going to get right into it. Shawn, what is your hot take?
My hot take is that most companies don't actually have a sales problem or a marketing problem or even a customer success problem. They have a communication problem, and they'll never fix the symptoms until they admit that they have a communications problem.
I'm really curious to have this conversation because one of my other endeavors, I have a podcast that's all about leadership, and that's one of the things that I think we as leaders struggle with is, we don't have a management problem, we don't have a talent problem, we don't have an employee problem, we have a communication problem. So I'm interested to hear it from the other side of the house. Is it's not necessarily that we have a sales problem, marketing problem, or even a customer experience problem, but it's communication. So tell us more what you mean by that.
So I just look at the customer journey as a whole. So from a marketing perspective, right, you're trying to attract the buyer. From sales, you're trying to qualify and get the right customer to purchase your product. And then onboarding, trying to take what sales has done and what sales has promised and actually implement the solution. And then finally, customer engagement or customer experience. That's the caboose to the train. And their goal is to consistently communicate with the client and make sure that they know what the company's doing, where the company's going, and what benefits that the company can continue to bring to them. And oftentimes because of the leadership, right? Like leaders have certain tools that they like, or they like to communicate a certain way. You'll have these disjointed systems that marketing's using one thing, sales is doing another, and then customer engagement is using another tool. So it's a matter of how do you consistently communicate from the very beginning to the end when you actually have that customer consistently on brand, um, and just keep the communication going. That's what I mean.
I think too, I like that you bring up like the full journey, right? Because especially in my own experience, I feel like every touch point that I have with a company is a moment where I'm doing like a gut check of either confirming or denying the promises that I believe that they have made to me. Whether or not they realize that those are the promises they've made, but this is like my perception of the brand, my perception of the company, my perception of what they're going to do for me and what they bring to the table. And every touch point is almost like a little micro check on, are you keeping your promise for me? Right. So, like, marketing
Right.
advertises, oh, okay, take this amazing weight loss drug and you're going to be supermodel skinny in 14 days. Okay. I buy into that. Right. And then I buy the product, sales, sells it to me, whatever. And then, I'm not supermodel skinny in 14 days. So therefore I've lost my trust. I've lost my understanding or my relationship with that product. And that's probably an extreme example. But I feel like a lot of times companies are either intentionally miscommunicating or unintentionally miscommunicating promises to their customers, making promises to their customers that they don't even realize that they're making. And then it breaks down in the process when marketing makes a promise on the website. I go to sales and that promise either gets confirmed or denied. Okay, sales confirms it. But then how many times do we hear like, I bought this product, I got all the way into it, and then I found out sales lied to me and then
Yeah.
it can't actually do what it says it can do.
Right. And oftentimes in sales, it's their job to figure out how to make it work. So they may think that they can sell the person and they can somewhat qualify the person, and then it gets to onboarding and it falls apart. I have a really it actually just happened, and it was I thought the communication from sales to onboarding had done a really good job. Basically what the customer had wanted. And I was part of the sales cycle, so this falls on me. But he is running a nationwide trucking after hours towing. So if a semi gets stuck in the middle of
Mhm.
nowhere, they call his number, and he's connected to whoever that tow truck company is locally that can go out and help the semi truck driver. That's his business. So his business is 100% based off of the phone call. He needed to know, he wanted a timer of every single time when somebody went on lunch. He wanted to actually track how long they were on lunch because he only wanted them to be on lunch for 30 minutes. And if it was 31 minutes, that's not okay. And he wanted to do the same thing with break. And then he also wanted to have an alert on his phones so that if the call went above 5 minutes, he could say, what the heck? These calls should not be more than 5 minutes. So that's how he qualified it. That's what he wanted. Sales took it. We took it through the process. And in our product, we don't technically have a timer that counts how long somebody's been at lunch or how long somebody's been at break, but we do have the ability to create a queue. And so basically my thought was in sales was, hey, when the employee wants to go to lunch, just move them from active taking calls to this queue that we're going to call lunch. And
Mhm.
that way that timer keeps going, and then you can figure out how long they've been at lunch. So he signed off. He said, "This is great." We showed him how it would work. He said, "Yes." I felt like all of my notes were accurate. I felt like I did a really good job explaining my notes. Handed it over to onboarding, and onboarding wasn't able to think outside the box like I did. And so they just flat out told the guy, "Sorry, we don't have a timer for when it comes to lunch. We don't have a timer when it comes to break." So those even I can admit when things fall apart, and I think it's really good to look internally and say, okay, how could I have done better? But that's the type of communication that we're trying to do the entire cycle. I
Yeah.
think in our situation, had like AI taken maybe some of those calls and then pass those notes directly over to onboarding and had onboarding done their like pre-check before they got on the phone with the customer, then they would have already known how sales had fixed the customer's problem, even though they had to do it in an out of the box fashion. So that that's a
And I
little
think
yeah,
too, like, that's a common story that we hear across organizations no matter what you sell. There's, like, that fragmentation, those silos that we're all trying to break down. And I think
yeah,
too, our customers, even though for a lot of people, they work in business to business, so, like, we all know that those fragmentations and those breakdowns happen, but it's almost like we get amnesia when we become the customer on the other side and we're like, "Wait, how is this breakdown happening? Like, I was told this, and how does, onboarding not know that?" And even companies of any size, I have seen some really almost honestly, like, impressive levels of breakdown in communication where it's like, "There's only 5 of you. How do you not, like, have a meeting where you're having these discussions?" But a lot of times, things that maybe don't seem important or don't seem obvious, like you mentioned, oh, onboarding wasn't thinking outside the box, right? Something that's obvious to you or something creative to you, it just doesn't occur to them because that's not part of their process or not part of the way that they've thought about it.
dang.
I was just having a similar conversation where I got on a call and I was talking to a group of people, and it some cultures are just so siloed, and sometimes it's on purpose, where
Mm,
the conversation was like, "Oh, well, marketing owns this piece of it, so we're not gonna touch it, and we're not gonna have an opinion on it, and we're not gonna be involved with it, and we own this piece of it, and we expect marketing to respect that boundary." And I'm
oh,
sitting here
wow.
thinking, like, the customer doesn't think of you as, "Okay, now I'm in marketing, now I'm in sales, now I'm in, onboarding." Like, the customer doesn't think of your process the way that you think of your process. So we
Yeah.
have to be thinking about, where is the customer at in our journey and how does our delivery align to that? And it's a really hard place to step out of our own way that we wanna do it and try to firm it up for the customer rather than for ourselves.
Well, and I think that's the friction points that we have from like, so from a director's perspective, you have the director of onboarding, the director of marketing, you have the director of sales. How do you get buy-in from all three of those silos that the most important thing is the customer experience?
Yeah.
And when you bring up those friction points, I think if you can always relate back to the customer, well, how would the customer feel? How does that affect the customer? Is that going to help the customer or not? And so I think alignment on that level where everybody, because individual employees, they're just doing what they're supposed to. They've got their checklist, they're going down. But
Mm.
it's from a leadership perspective, if leaders come to the table together and everybody understands that the end goal is to always give the customer the best experience possible, if you start with that thought and then work your way out, you're going to have better success. I know that we did like at Pantera Networks, we had a marketing team. They would be famous for, we would do a sales kickoff every year. And they would be really, really famous about saying, well, you just let us know what you need. But that's not really the job of a sales guy. The sales guy is just trying to close business. So like, wait,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to come up with what marketing actually needs. And so uh they, they didn't really take ownership over, what, we're going to try to live inside of the daily life of a salesperson. And then we're going to try to create the tools or create the assets or create the messaging that matches up with the best way to sell the product. And so until we fix that issue, our marketing was disjointed with our sales. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like they just the old team just expected sales to come to them and say, hey, I need this, without being proactive and really trying to live inside the shoes of sales. So the better that leadership can be to explain or to give experiences or to bring that leadership mind share together, then you're going to have more success. At least that's how I've experienced it here at Pantera.
Well, and one of the things that I've been looking into lately, there's emerging research that shows that people are 80% of their mind has been made up before sales even knows they exist, right? Before
Yep.
they fill out a lead form, before
Yep.
they pick up the phone, before they've ever kind of de-anonymize themselves. And that's really where marketing can do a great level of very important work to basically give the customer what they need to decide that you're probably a good fit. Because
Right.
if marketing is done well, that sales conversation should be more of a like a sales deal to lose. Yours to lose, not yours to close, right?
True.
And the idea that they're coming to the table, the customer is coming to the table pretty much already decided. They're just looking for that last little, 15 to 20% decision that they need. And then every point after that is that gut check as we talked about in the beginning.
Yep.
So how do we figure out like where does it this is probably a chicken and the egg question, like an age-old problem, but like where does this originate? Is it we need someone who's in onboarding to say this is what it looks like for the customer to be successful and then sales builds use cases around that success and then marketing builds stories around those use cases? Does it start from the inside or does marketing say this is what the market is begging for and we bring it down? Or is it kind of sales who's in the middle there who says this is what my customers are asking for, marketing tell these stories and product build this thing the market wants and my customers are begging for? Where does it originate?
I think a really good company that understands its niche and understands what it's trying to offer the market would actually start with their customer base in mind. Like
Mhm.
who have we sold to before and why did they buy? Right? You always go back to the actual people that went through the cycle. If you and then so that's where I think that we would start, right? Like, how do we make sure that we're delivering and that our expectations are clear? Uh, so I think you go back to your customer, you get their buy-in. Why did you buy? What did you like? What didn't you like? And then you build out from there. I do think that sales, and maybe I'm probably biased for this. I think sales is the one group that has their ear closest to the ground. Uh, for example, one of my customers, they're more in the consumer business. And so as I was going through and I was listening to, because what they're doing is they're doing outbound dialing. So think of it as if you go to a website, you're looking up like beauty products, like the latest peptide fad or whatever is going on. Their goal is to capture that information and then reach out to the client and help that client make a decision. And it's all about lead to speed and trying to close that client as quickly as possible because marketing's doing what you said, right? Like they're already doing 80% of the work to bring the person in to create the interest. The person saw something on Facebook and now they're on the website and now they're putting in their information. at that with that customer, they have multiple products that they're offering, and sales was constantly telling them that nobody was buying the ED medicine. Like, "Don't sell this. Nobody's buying it. They're not gonna sign up for a multi-subscription of this ED product." And so it was sales that could tell marketing, "Hey, you're doing a great job of getting the word out and getting people to the website, but for whatever reason, the person comes to the website, they look at the offering and nobody's buying that
Yep.
offering." So in those situations, I do feel like sales has its ear closer to the ground. And so it can provide quick feedback on what is actually selling versus marketing that's doing a great job of generating the interest, but ultimately sells for whatever reason can't seem to close it. So, but that again, because I'm a sales guy, I'm probably a little biased about that. Take that with a
Yeah.
grain of salt.
Oh, yeah. I'm a reluctant salesperson, so I feel that. But I do feel like a lot of times where there's been multiple we sell services, right? So,
Yeah,
there's multiple times where I've come out of my office and said, "Hey, everybody, I just invented this new thing that we're doing. So now we gotta figure it out," right? And that does not make me the favorite person of the delivery and onboarding. But it has led to really interesting and unique opportunities for us. And it's almost maybe I'm gonna answer my own question. It's almost like it's gotta be all the right pieces working together, like, it doesn't come from one, but it's marketing has to be able to generate the interest, and it has to be something that the market is interested in, and sales can contribute to, like, "Hey, this is what the market is closing on," and then customer success, delivery, onboarding, whatever you call them, the post-sale team has to be able to say, "Okay, these are the promises that were made, these are the things that we're actually capable, let's not try to sell things that don't actually exist or that we can't do." So more of
right.
that holistic, we all come together as 3 pillars of the same stool.
Yep. And that's the goal. So I think if you go to onboarding and you ask them for their input, they have a tendency to limit the scope
Mhm.
of what you can sell. So you definitely have to be like the voice, like what you're saying is, "Hey, you are implementation, you are delivery. This is what we're going to be doing." So I would say they're the tail of the dog. They're not the like, you know what I mean? Like they kind of just have to put it together and do the work based off of where the vision is coming from leadership. But
Considering all of the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else do we need to be paying attention to?
This is an old name that maybe not a lot of people know about, but if you're looking at sales leadership, so that's where I talk a lot about. I try to give ideas and thoughts around how to make a sales team, how to better a sales team, how to grow a sales team. There's this guy named Mr. Inside Sales. I don't know if you've ever heard of him,
Mm-mm.
but his name's Mike Brooks. And if you can get some of his material because it's all about so in today's world, I think that we're selling over video, and video is not so different as the phone call, but you still have to present yourself. You need to have the right techniques on video calls, but it's similar to selling over the phone. And so there's this probably I think he's from like the 90s or the 2000s. I'd be curious what he's doing now, but it's his name's Mike Brooks and it's Mr. Inside Sales. And whenever I go back through coaching and I'm like, "Oh gosh, what should I have done there?" I kind of like go back to his material and I just put that into play and be like, "Oh, what would Mike Brooks do?" So, there's a name for you.
And if someone is loving this conversation, they want more of you, where can they find you online?
So I'm online on LinkedIn. That's really my focus. I'm trying to post on LinkedIn, and they can reach out directly to me. I have a really big following, and I do respond to messages. So if you message me on LinkedIn, if you have a communications problem that you're trying to work on, Pantera Networks, we do focus on customer experience. We focus on AI agents. That's a big thing that's been taking over. So if you're just trying to figure out how can I make my customer journey better and where do my customers want to communicate in today's world? Generation Z is not communicating the same way that the boomer generation is communicating. So come to me for those questions, and I'd be happy to answer.
And if you are looking for me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Search Alyssa Nolte. And if you find the notorious plant killer, you know you have found the right Alyssa Nolte. I also write on Substack under the publication Alyssa Likes to Talk. Shawn, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I loved this conversation. I think it's really important for all of us to be thinking about what does it mean to deliver on a customer experience as a whole and making sure that our customers feel like they're in the loop, that we're communicating well, and we're communicating with the customer in mind and not our own process or experiences.
Exactly. I couldn't have summed it up better, Alyssa. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.